In today's video, we're going to take a look at the current NHL standings and predict which teams are going to make the playoffs. There's some tight races heating up as we head into the home stretch here. We'll discuss that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. Alright, so before we jump into making some predictions, let's take a look at where things are today, and then I'll give you my reasons and thoughts as to how I think they're going to be at the end of the season. I do think that things in the standings are going to change a little bit between now and the playoffs getting underway. So let's get started here with where things are at as of right now. Let's start with the Central Division. You get the Nashville Predators in first place. The Winnipeg Jets aren't far behind in second, but there is enough of a gap there. The Nashville is pretty comfortable. And then you get the Minnesota Wild in third place. Now, if you take a look at the Pacific, in the West, we've got the Vegas Golden Knights in first place. Then we've got the San Jose Sharks and the Anaheim Ducks in second and third, respectively. Now, for the wild card spots, right now, we've got the Dallas Stars, you get the Colorado Avalanche, and then there's a bunch of teams that are trying to nip at their heels here and get in. You've got teams like the LA Kings, the Calgary Flames, and the St. Louis Blues. Now, it is kind of tight there, and I think at the bottom, as the last few spots, are where there's the most likelihood to have some change. So let's jump into here where I think things are going to finish. Now, if you take a look at where things are at now in the West, I don't think you're going to see any change in the top three in the Central. You get Nashville's pretty comfortable where they are, and there's a big enough gap with Winnipeg and Minnesota that I think Winnipeg and Minnesota are 2-3 right now, and that's the way it's going to. In the Pacific, I do see a little bit of change happening. Right now, Vegas is pretty comfortable where they're at in first place. I don't see that changing. The Sharks are still relatively comfortable in second place, and I'm going to say that they remain there as well. But the one change I'm going to predict is the Anaheim Ducks. I don't think they're going to stay in third place by the end of the year. I'm going to predict that the LA Kings, because there's not that much of a gap, even though they're technically not in the playoffs right now, if you look at the way the standings are, I think they're going to leapfrog over and end up in that third spot in the Pacific Division and knock the Ducks down a peg. Now, obviously, right now, as I mentioned, you get the Stars and the Avalanche in the wild card spots. Well, I think that what we're going to see here is I think we're going to see Colorado get knocked down, and I think we're going to end up seeing the Ducks go into that spot in the wild card spot. So the Kings, for me, is the team to watch. I think they're going to end up popping up and making a bit of a move. And now, of course, you get, like I mentioned, you also get the Blues and the Flames on their heels. Personally, I think St. Louis is done. I don't think there's any chance the Blues are making the playoffs. I think they knew that leading into the deadline and traded away Paul Stastny. So I think they knew the writing was on the wall, that this just wasn't their year. Things have not gone as planned. They've had some pretty significant injuries to deal with. I mean, they had Robbie Fabry out from the get-go. Jade Bouwmeester's now out for the season. They've had Jaden Schwartz out for a period of time. Like, it just hasn't been a great year for the team staying healthy. And you throw in some other couple of players with some inconsistent play, and it's just been it's been a mediocre year at best. And so I think the Blues are done. The same thing with the Calgary Flames. I mean, with that Mike Smith injury, and not that really did a number on the Flames. They've had inconsistent goaltending outside of Mike Smith, and the team in general really hasn't been the most consistent all season. So I think the Flames and the Blues they'll make it interesting, they'll make it close, but at the end of the day here, I don't think that they make it into the playoffs. The Dallas Stars are going to do well to hang on here as well, because they've been very underwhelming as of late. They do have a pretty good team on paper, where they haven't played like it for a big chunk of the year. So they need to get their act together for this to hold true here for them to make the playoffs. So if that works out to be correct and my predictions come true, then in the first round of the playoffs, we're going to end up seeing the Nashville Predators play the Dallas Stars. We're going to see the Winnipeg Jets play the Minnesota Wild. And then on the other side, we're going to see the Vegas Golden Knights take on the Anaheim Ducks. And then we're going to see the San Jose Sharks play the LA Kings. So certainly some interesting playoff matchups. Going to be the first time for Vegas, so it'll be something new there. Obviously, San Jose and LA have quite a rivalry already, so that should be a pretty intense series. And even the Winnipeg-Minnesota series, I think, has a lot of potential to be very strong as well. So now let's take a jump over here and take a look at the Eastern Conference. I do see things changing a little bit in the end here compared to the way they are today. But let's start off and take a look at the Eastern standings. If you take a look at the Metro Division, you get the Penguins in first, the Capitals in second, and the Flyers in third. Now, I do see some change here based on schedule, games in hand, etc. I think the Capitals are going to jump up and take that #1 spot away from the Penguins. And then we're going to see the Penguins drop to #2, and the Flyers are going to remain in #3. Now, the Flyers have been a very, very streaky team this year. They've had some of the wildest winning and losing streaks. So depending on how they do going into the playoffs, might predict just how dangerous or of a team they may be, or not at all. So I'm not sure what Flyer team we're going to see, but they've certainly had their times of brilliance this year, but they've also had their times where they look terrible for stretches as well. So I don't know what team we're going to see come playoff time, but either way, I see them getting in that #3 spot. If you take a look at the Atlantic Division, there hasn't been much movement there for quite some time. Tampa Bay's up there pretty good in first place. Now the Boston Bruins, they're not too far behind, and they do have some games in hand, but I don't see them catching Tampa, mainly because I think as much as the Bruins have been having a tremendous year and they've been playing great, I think right now they're kind of having the injury bug catching up to them. I mean, and as well, they had David Backes out suspended, Bergeron's out, Brad Marchand missed the last game against the Hawks. I'm not sure when exactly he'll be back. I don't believe that's anything too long term, but either way, I just think that there's enough going on in Boston. I think they will win more than they lose here down the stretch. I just don't think they're going to be able to make up enough ground to take that 1 spot from Tampa. And obviously the Maple Leafs are pretty comfortable in third place, as a lot of the teams behind them really haven't had the greatest season. But there is the surging Florida Panthers gunning for a wildcard spot, and we'll talk about them here in just a second. So obviously with the way things are right now in the Eastern Conference, that leaves the 2 wildcard teams as the New Jersey Devils and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, as far as teams trying to catch those guys, you get the Florida Panthers are the next spot. You got the New York Islanders and the Carolina Hurricanes. But to be honest, I think the only team that has a chance to knock one of those teams out is the Florida Panthers. I think the New York Islanders, they just had a big losing streak. They've been inconsistent all year. Their defensive play and giving up way too many shots and goaltending not, kind of being hot and cold has done them in this year. And personally, I think the Islanders are done. I don't see them making any jumps up in the standings. And as much as I would have liked to have seen it for Islanders fans to get Johnny Tavares a chance to play in the playoffs here before his contract comes due, I just don't see it happening. Carolina Hurricanes, I think another case. They've been better at times, but they're still a bit inconsistent, and they haven't made up enough ground, and time is running out. But I do see big changes coming for them in the future here, the new ownership in place. However, for this year, I can see them maybe coming a little bit close and making it interesting, but at the end of the day, they're not getting in the playoffs in my opinion. But I do think the Panthers will. The way the Florida Panthers have been playing the second half of the season, they are one of the funner teams to watch. They have a lot of top guys that are still in their prime years, and right now they're surging at an incredible pace. I think they're going to make up, and they are going to take one of those wild card spots. I think the team that's going to fall victim, the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think the 2 wild card teams are going to be the Devils and the Panthers. That's my prediction for the Eastern Conference playoff hunt here. So that actually sets things up pretty standard here. So you're going to see 4 from the Atlantic and 4 from the Metro. I think for about 3/4 of the year, we kind of thought it'd be 5 from the Metro and 3 from the Atlantic, but I don't think it's going to end up finishing that way. And the way it's going to work out is that there will be no teams crossing over either. We're going to see Tampa play Florida in the battle of the state of Florida for those teams. That'll be interesting for a playoff series, which I don't believe has ever happened before. We're going to see the Bruins and the Leafs go at it as well in the first round. Obviously, the Leafs are going to be trying to exercise their demons against the Bruins. We all know what happened the last time those 2 teams met. I don't think I need to remind Leaf fans, although the team is very, very different now than it was back then. So I do expect different things, but it's going to be a big challenge for sure. It should be a very interesting series. On the other side of the equation, in the Metro Division, my prediction holds true. That'll put the Capitals playing the Devils in the first round on the other side, and then the Penguins playing the Flyers. So depending on what Flyers team shows up for the playoffs, we'll see if they get a chance to knock off the Stanley Cup champions. Either way, there's some great rivalries there. Should make for some great first round action. So leave some comments down below. Who do you think is going to make the playoffs? I realize a lot of these top 3 divisional spots, for the most part, are pretty secure, and there's nothing too crazy here that we expect to happen down the stretch. But I put the wild card spots and some of those number 3 spots, I do see some movement happening, and I think some of the teams that are holding the spot down now are going to get knocked out and miss the playoffs. So leave me your thoughts on who you think gets in and how the first round matchups will shake down. Once the regular season comes to an end and we have the official playoff matchups, we will be doing prediction videos as well, giving you our thoughts on who will win in the first round and all the way through to the Stanley Cup Finals on who we think is going to win each series. So stay tuned for that. If you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. We have daily uploads here. We cover all 31 teams, so we have plenty of content for you to enjoy. If you haven't done so already, please consider checking us out on social media. You're going to see our Twitter account on the screen right here. We also have an Instagram and Facebook account as well, and all those are linked down below in the description. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We'll catch you next time.